Hi everyone, I'm Jamie Reed, the Education Specialist with the Oracle Applications and Technology Users Group. I'm very excited to welcome you all to today's session hosted by the Multinational General Ledger and ADI SIGs called Record to Report, Key Features and Functions for Financial and Operational Reporting from eBusiness Suite and Oracle Cloud ERP. Before we dive in, I'd like to briefly introduce everyone to OATUG, in case you're new to our programming. We are a community of Oracle users and we provide education, networking, and support to our members. Make sure to save the date for our Ascend conference next year. It'll be at the Carib Royal Resort in Orlando from June 11th to the 14th. Just a quick reminder for today's webinar, you will be on mute throughout the session. However, you are welcome to send questions at any time through the chat, which we will address at the end. If you're interested in receiving CPE credit, you will need to be logged into the session for at least 50 minutes and post in the chat at least one question. We are recording the session, and the recording as well as the slide deck will be available to OATG members in the knowledge base, and you'll see the link for that in the chat area. And now I'd like to turn it over to today's speakers, Tom Simkus and Lee Briggs with Creole Consulting, and Mohan Iyer and Hans Colby with Cilantro Systems. Thank you so much for presenting. You guys can take it away.
All right, great. Thanks, Jamie. I appreciate it. This is Tom Simkus with Creole Consulting. Lee, you want to go to the next slide, please? So Lee and I are actually in the office together, but he is 20 feet to my left or right, actually. So we're doing a series of webinars over the next 3 months. And really what we're trying to accomplish is kind of exploring the similarities and differences between eBusiness Suite and Oracle Cloud. The OATUG and certainly Oracle has a lot of members that are still using eBusiness Suite. Contrary to what you may hear from Oracle marketing, eBusiness Suite is not going away anytime soon. Cliff Godwin is the eBusiness Suite champion at Oracle, and he's in charge of development. He gives speeches. He'll actually be appearing at the Ascend conference in 2023 in Florida. And, you know, he's let the users know that eBusiness Suite is going to be around at least for the next 10 years. There's a lot of good reasons to migrate from Oracle Cloud, but for those that are still running EBS, it still does a lot of great things. And what our focus is today is we're going to discuss Record to Report. But we've got some additional sessions coming up that I'll go through. Our panelists today include myself, Tom Simkus from Creole Consulting, Lee Briggs, Hans Colby, and Mohan Iyer. And I'll let those guys introduce themselves in a second. But what we're trying to accomplish with the series is really to just discuss, you know, do you have to go to cloud or, you know, does staying on eBusiness Suite make sense for your business? And we'll certainly be open to taking questions throughout the day. Next slide, Lee. So as I said, I'm Tom Simkus. I'm the Director of Cloud Consulting here for the Cloud practice at Creole. I've been doing Oracle for a long time. Started out as an end user in 1997. Liked it so much I got into consulting, and I have stayed with it ever since, except for a brief stint in the private sector. I've actually worked with Lee Briggs for most of that 25-year career. I think it's going on 21 years. I'm an Oracle ace, as is Lee. Lee would be happy to tell you he's the first Oracle ace between the two of us. So Lee, you want to give yourselves background and then hand it off?
You've stolen all my good stuff. My name is Lee Briggs. I'm the one with the accent. I've been working with Oracle applications since 2001. I've exclusively been a implementer with the applications. I focus on the financial side. I am actually the solution architect at Creole, so any of the engagements that come through the SLED team, the cloud practice team that we have, at some point I'm going to touch them, whether it's estimating, whether it's doing the implementation, doing the training, just designing everything. But I'm excited to share this experience we've had of EBS and cloud with you. Mohan. How about Hans?
No, Mohan is ready. Here we go.
Sorry, I was trying to find the mute.
Found the button. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good morning. My name is Mohan Iyer. I have known Hans, Thomas, and Lee for quite a long time. I've been in the US for the last 25 years. I've worked with them probably about 20 years or so. I have also worked with both EBS and the cloud, and I am a consultant and have been a consultant since I came to the US. I have an accounting background, and I probably do the similar role that Lee does at Creole Consulting. based in the West Coast, so we don't run into each other too often. So we're kind of having a good realm of running through that. So thank you very much for putting this together, Thomas. And like you said, it will be capped off with an event, with a session at the SN conference, which to let you all know, will be leading with functionality differences between EBS and cloud. Thank you. Hans?
Hi, thank you, Mohan, and thank you, Thomas and Lee. This is really a pleasure to do this together again. It's really nice. I'm just staring at your pictures right now. And Seamus is not on the panel, but he certainly is an active participant. I am the chairperson of the Multinational Special Interest Group, and I also founded Cilantro Systems, but now it's 23 years ago. And we concentrate on international and global implementations. I've done also cloud and EBS. And I think one of the things I just wanted to highlight here is that all of us have been very active in the Oracle user community and leading different special interest groups together, sometimes separately. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Hans. And as Hans said, Seamus is not on today's session, but he is part of the series. He will be on.
I think he's in the audience right now. He's in the audience, but I don't know.
He is, yes. He was good enough to attend.
Okay.
So today we're going to go over Record to Report and key features and functions in Oracle EBS and Oracle ERP Cloud. In April, Hans and Seamus will cover international implementations, just discuss some key differences in R12 between ledgers and ledger sets and operating units and what should your enterprise structure be. As Hans said, his focus and Cilantro's focus is on really international implementations, although they do a lot of other things. Hans is the chair of the multinational SIG. He is kind enough to allow me to continue to serve as the co-chair for many years. So that is certainly a focus that we have. And then the third one that Mohan is going to lead in May, which will be the last one that we do prior to the Ascend conference, is talking about integrations in EBS and Cloud ERP, similarities, differences, what you can do in both environments, and a little bit of how you can do it. So I'm really looking forward to all these sessions. I do think we have quite a bit of good content to share with the audience. As Jamie said, I think we are going to take questions throughout, meaning you do not have to wait until the very end. If you've got a question and it's pertinent to what we're covering, please feel free to ask it, and we will do our best to answer it. Okay, Lee, we ready to go?
Absolutely, Tom. So the first session is, as Tom said, it's looking at Record to Report. So for the folks who have been running EBS or still on EBS, it's been up and running for at least 30 years. Over that time, I'm sure there has never been a phrase of, oh my God, that reporting is awesome, especially with an accent. And the reporting initially was kind of the basis of a lot of third-party reporting tools over the years. I'm not going to mention by name, but I know a lot of the folks that have been out there. However, with the release of at least release 12 and then going to 12.1, 12.2, and the incorporation of things like enterprise command centers, BI publisher, XML publisher as used to be called, we really wanted to look at, does that still hold true? Now, one of the things that we're going to look at from the cloud point of view is the out-of-the-box reporting. Oracle built cloud. They took the best and brightest from each of the areas and started pulling that together. So no longer do we need FSG reports in general ledger. We now have Essbase. We have all these cubes where everything is just going to be accessible. It's accessible now. The balances are out there, and we can consume it with SmartView, with Financial Reporting Studio, whatever. No need in cloud to get any business intelligence tools because it's built in. Something around the application, so we can do that kind of ad hoc reporting from an end user point of view. So what we're trying to do is in this session is to look at the reporting. What can I do out of the box in EBS? What can I do out of the cloud? And what kind of tips and tips and tricks do we have as we go through that? Tom, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think the biggest thing to add, Lee, and we do speak to it on a future slide, but I know there's a lot of folks in the audience that either use or represent companies that sell third-party tools. This isn't about that. We do know that there's a lot of great products out there that can integrate with EBS or stand on top of it, and the same thing for cloud. There are great products out there that people can use. That's not what this is about. This is not a commercial for any product, and we don't advocate or speak against any particular third-party product. This is really just an education about what's available. And I think the main reason we wanted to do this, whether it's EBS or whether it's cloud, and most of the work that Creel has done over the last couple of years has been cloud, I am constantly amazed by the lack of understanding of standard Oracle tools. The number of folks that still will download a trial balance into Excel, not only in EBS, but in cloud, because they said that, it can't get a good financial report or they don't know how to do it. And that's frustrating to me from a lot of perspectives. The biggest one being, I know that I trained my clients on how to do it, but I think the biggest frustration is, understanding how to report in Oracle, aside from, all the tools that the OATUG makes available. If you Google how to use SmartView in Oracle ERP Cloud, there's about 150 really good videos on it. So, I'll say this, and I'm a pretty direct guy. If you don't know how to report in Oracle Cloud, it's because you're lazy, and there's just no other way around it. So hopefully, some of the stuff you guys will get today will be a little bit helpful. And then if it isn't, there's certainly some great information that will be available at the conference. So Lee, let's go into financial reporting in EBS. So what are the type of reports of today's multinational? And this is really, we put multinational. This is certainly the needs that we see of many of our clients. Lee and I work on commercial. We work on public sector. Our firm works on a lot of federal clients. And we see weekly flash reporting, right? And that's a P&L by week, which has, the prior week's actuals, and it could have the rest of the month's budget. Operational reports. By operational reports, we really mean, data that doesn't necessarily come from the GL, but certainly should come from Oracle. Top 10 vendors, top 10 suppliers, top 10 invoices, things of that nature, things that you want to see how your business is doing and how your business is working. And then, of course, you got your dashboards and metrics, and then we've got our consolidated financials from Oracle and non-Oracle. And there's a lot of different tools within EBS, and there's a lot of different tools within cloud, and some of these things are better than others. As I said a few minutes ago, we are focused on out of the box. We are not going to be touching on third-party tools. We may speak to some additional components that Oracle makes available, both in cloud and EBS, whether that's EPM, Enterprise Performance Management, or even some of the analytics tools that Oracle has. But we are focusing exclusively on Oracle. Okay, Lee. All right, so what do we have here in this rather busy slide? We have our overview of what reporting looks like. So you got balances at the top and transactional data at the bottom. And really at the end of the day, that is really the universe of things from which we can report, right? So we have balances in general ledger. We have balances in project accounting. We have balances in the subledgers. And you're just really looking at those things that you can report from a general ledger perspective. And those balances, there's different tools and options to report off of. We broke them up into 4 areas that we thought were pertinent to not only EBS and cloud, but really systems in general. So management reporting and financial statements, ad hoc analysis, charts, office integration, dashboards, charts, and flexible output, and then finally high volume reports. So whether that's checks or 1099 forms or error invoices. So what our intention is to kind of go through our interpretation of what we think the best tools are to answer these problems within the Oracle environment, give you guys a brief overview of how they're used and how they should be used, and maybe give you guys some highlights into some things you had not yet thought about. All right, Lee, we will start with financial statement generator, good old EBS. So most of my clients, much to my chagrin, they don't use FSGs too much anymore. We do have a couple of our clients that do. Lee was actually fortunate enough to give a training on advanced FSG tips and tricks for one of our clients in Philadelphia not that long ago. And, a lot of the things that we're going to go through today, he went through with them. And I find that interesting because this was a client that has been using eBusiness Suite since release 10.7, all the way back in the 90s. So even though they've been using it, the fact is that users had come in and out, and they weren't aware of how to use FSGs. And, contrary to my kind of smart aleck comment a few minutes ago about being able to report in the cloud, there's not that many great YouTube videos about how to use FSGs. I did look just in preparation for doing this deck. So in EBS, what's a financial statement generator, an FSG? It is a combination of various components, rows, columns, and then other objects, which are called content sets or row orders or display sets. And these objects all put together allows you to create reports in the eBusiness suite. Next slide, Lee. Thank you, sir. So what we have here on the right-hand side, this rather gaudy-looking image, and that image is actually from the Oracle General Ledger User Guide, circa 1996, as you can see by the screenshot above, but it really hasn't changed that much, the general components. Some of the tools and the presentations have, but the way that they're built hasn't changed that much. You've got a row set and a column set. That essentially defines your accesses, excuse me. And, you know, a typical P&L or balance sheet that you're used to seeing will have your accounts in the row, and you'll have your periods or perhaps your cost centers or legal entities in the column, so you can do different slicing and dicing. A row order is simply used to determine the order in which your rows can display. And then you have something called a content set. Content sets are used to get multiple versions of a single report. So, for example, you could define a report that is consolidated and then have a single report for each legal entity or cost center, or whatever happened to be, spit out afterwards. Using that content set allows you to get multiple representations from the same report without having to build multiple reports. And Lee's going to go over this when he goes to FRS, but content sets are very similar in feel and function to page display options in FRS. Display sets can be used to show or hide columns based upon where the row and column intersects. I'm a big fan, or I was a big fan, of using display sets when I used to do statement of cash flows back in the olden days. Financial report set is just a consolidation or a grouping of financial reports, and the ones that are asterisks are mandatory, meaning you have to have a row and a column set in order to create an FSG. The other ones are all supplementary pieces of information that you can utilize to make your reporting a little bit more easy and a little bit more robust. We can go to the next slide, Lee. Thank you. What we have here is just a screenshot of one of the ways that you can run an FSG. There are several ways that you can run an FSG. If you run it with the concurrent program, program publish FSG, you can determine using a seeded template that is available as part of the application to have it come out in Excel or PDF or rich text format or even HTML. Lee is the head of the ADI SIG, and the client-side version of ADI went the way of the dodo some years ago. But there actually is still a web version out there, but the ability to do reports in that is no longer available. You actually do that in a tool called Report Manager, right? So Report Manager is an HTML-based user interface, and this allows you to not only run reports, as you can see on this screen, but you can also edit the templates. So some of the templates can be generic, meaning you can use them across all your FSGs. But if you want to have a template that is specific to an individual FSG, you can do that. Reasons you would want to do that is not only for security, but also to control how people drill down. And it also gives you the ability to change the look and feel. So I literally had a client, and I tell this story a lot, and it's a true story. I had a client that insisted that they generate their financial statement so it looked like green bar. And, you know, I've never seen green bar used in a financial statement. You typically see that for, you know, a payables analysis or a receivables analysis, but they wanted every other line green. So we did that using an FSG template editor, and we had every other line formatted green. And so there's, you know, that capability is absolutely within the tool. We can go to the next slide, Lee. Report Manager was introduced in R12, so it's there. So if you're running release 12, you have it. You may not be aware of it. I'm actually quite surprised by the number of folks that are not aware that that tool does exist, but it is there. It was backported to 11i, so believe it or not, I'm sure my consulting friends will not be surprised by this. I have a number of clients that actually are still running 11i. In fact, my team just went live with a client that was rolling in an international entity on 11i on Monday of this week. So there are still clients that do that, but the nice thing is even though Oracle released Report Manager in R12, they did backport it to 11i, and it is there. It's not quite as robust, but for the most part, feature by feature, it is similar enough. You can use Report Manager, as I said, to not only create your templates, but also group your financial statements so that you have a web UI that people can go in and see your reports so that you don't have to email them out. Next, Lee. We can actually skip this, Lee. We already kind of covered this. Okay, so Report Manager setups, things that you kind of have to do in order to make it work. I think it's kind of important to note that many of these setups are, as we have listed here, they're optional. Some of them are mandatory. But generally speaking, you have to set some profile values. And the documentation on this is actually very good. Oracle back in the day used to get quite vilified for the documentation, but it's really very good now. And most things you need to do are there. You have to attach specific function to menus. That is obviously required. And then you have to add the manager program to a request group. So that's a lot of sysadmin stuff that you can do. And then as you want the application to behave as you want, you need to perform some setup of the templates and assign them as needed. You need to add the current request group so that you can generate XML. Now, if you're on an old release of Oracle, that ability to generate XML, some things need to be done on the back end. Again, in R12, by default, it does this automatically. And even in 11.5.10, in most releases, you don't really have to do much. But if you're on an older release prior to that, there may be some things you need to do. At the client in Philadelphia, Lee actually had to work with their technical team for a couple days to get the menus working as needed. So there is a little bit of work that does need to be done. Next slide, Lee. All right, now you get to the good stuff.
So you'll see as the themes all the way through this since we're focusing on EBS and we're focusing on cloud. Tom is pretty much taking the EBS stuff. Again, we have pretty much the same experience in EBS and cloud. We've kind of figured that was an easy way. So EBS was all around financial statement generator and report manager. In cloud, the tool we're talking about is Financial Reporting Center. And we're actually giving it down. Everything you see here is straight out of an instance. So this isn't just yes, Oracle had it in a sales marketing. This is straight out of an instance. So Financial Reporting Center gives us functionality for reporting on our Essbase Cube balances. Everything that we see within Financial Reporting Center inherits the security that your users have. So if you have users who only have access to a specific ledger, or if you start getting to the point of using chart of accounts security, so I can only see department 1 through 3, I can get into Financial Reporting Center just fine. I can see all the reports out there. They'll only ever see stuff that is appropriate to me. In that case, cost center 1, 2, 3. We also get integrated access to live and pre-published reports. So I can go into the application and say, in March of 2023, let me look to see where our balances are right now for March 2023. Someone can post a journal entry and then I can refresh it and see it updated. I also have the ability to do pre-published reports. So I can actually say, as a producer of these reports, let us generate a report book, a snapshot of the instance exactly as it was at the end of December. That's it. They are the published numbers we have out there. And again, you may have adjusting periods and stuff going on, but I can lock that down to make sure, even if I open a period out, I can still get that report with those balances we have out there. The other cool thing we have in cloud is report books. I can actually generate a report book to generate my income statement, my balance sheet, my cash flow, my revenue by cost center, my revenue by location, whatever I have in my chart of accounts. I can actually generate those report books and publish those out. So it is just looking at one specific area out there, but with all the reports in there. So it is FRC, for a Financial Reporting Center, or Financial Reporting Studio is more of the production side. Is completely graphical. It is dragging stuff around. It is still doing pixel perfect stuff. So you actually get a view of the page. You get to see where your header is going to be. You get to see where your logos are going to be. But they are pixel perfect out there. And a lot of this stuff, you kind of have as you go through. So we're defining these reports. And again, this graphic on the right-hand side of the screen is a single report. That is one page out there. It's got multiple grids out there. So at least 3 grids, each giving us different flavors of information, as well as a chart. Again, all getting generated by the tool. The output we can use, we can send this to Excel. We can send it to Word. We can send it to PDF. We can send it to XML if you're going to do that, XBRL if you're going to do that. The cool stuff we can start doing is PowerPoint, as well as SmartView. SmartView is a tool that we're going to be touching on a little bit later on in this session, but we can actually send our financial reports over to SmartView, which As a preview, you can essentially think of as a pivot table on steroids. It is using Excel functionality, that whole pivot table stuff, but pointing back to your database, you can add columns, subtract columns as you go through, zoom in, zoom out, but it's looking at your financial reports as well. So let me play around with my income statement and maybe blast it out by department, cost center, something like that. We can still have drill down from these tools. So I can still, when I define my reports, I can say that, yes, make this column drillable, make it non-drillable, etc. You can actually get it down to the intersection level. So maybe if my entire report, I only want this cell to be drillable, I can make that specific cell, or that intersection of the column and the row drillable. Everything else would just be a static value. So you have that complete flexibility out there. Now, depending upon the definition of the report, and this is where we start getting a little bit cool, we can actually have the consumers of the report change what they can see. So I could define, and let's take a look at, as we look at these graphics, I can define a report to say, show me an income statement for all companies, all cost centers, all departments, all whatever. I can define it that way, and every time I look at it, we'll go in to show all companies, all cost centers, all product values. As you can see on the graphic in the top right, it is defined for all cost centers, all product values. But as a user, I can say, that's really great. I'm looking at this report. Let me just focus on my cost center, my product, whatever I want to look at. I can change that look and feel there. Report is still tied down. It's still going to always generate for all cost centers, but I can change how I view it. So you get that flexibility of not having people call your accounting team to say, can you please give me that report in my cost center? Users can do that for themselves. Similarly, these reports are real time. So we talked about running pre-published versions, so locking down December. These reports are real time, so you can start doing your preliminary, maybe your preliminary balance sheet during period end close. You can actually see, yeah, that balance doesn't look right. Hey, Joe, did you post that journal? No, post it. Okay, let me refresh the screen, and it's updated in real time. There's no exporting this to Excel. There's no kind of doing all the pivot table stuff that Tom was talking about earlier that a lot of folks still do. It's live data. Let me look at the numbers, hit refresh. Okay, now I can see that those numbers are refreshed. It's not running the report, just generating those balances again. So Tom, that was Financial Reporting Center, Financial Reporting Studio, Financial Reporting Center. Do you want to talk a little bit about the exports and then the RxI stuff?
Sure, thanks, Lee. So what we're going to go through relatively quickly is some ad hoc reporting that's available in EBS. It's certainly not as robust as available in cloud, but you can do this. And I quite often do go to my EBS clients, especially the newer users, and they ask me about ways to get information out of the system. And the ability to do that export, that file export to Excel, that's a great feature. And that's been in Oracle for a long time. Using the combination of the folder tools, and a lot of the forms have folders. Not all of them do, but a lot of them do. The one that we have up here is a general ledger batch search field. So if you go to General Ledger's batch and you do a search, you can create custom folders to show you and bring back specific information. So you can create new folders or open existing folders. And those folders that you open, you can actually create and save queries in them. So what I have done at many of my prior clients, we would create a folder for month end to bring back all unposted journal entries for the current month. And that's really just a matter of executing a query and saving that query into the particular folder. But you can add fields, you can remove fields, you can move fields around. So these folders are actually quite flexible and quite powerful. So, just something to think about. It's there, and a lot of folks don't know about it. Next slide, Lee. We'll talk about RxI. Excuse me, this is the GL account analysis. My apologies. So account analysis allows you to drill down from account balances on your GL form to journal details. It's actually similar in function, if not in look and feel, to the account monitor in Oracle Cloud. So we can go to the next slide, Lee, and we'll talk through what it looks like quickly. So from your account balances field, you can create different types of analysis, a single period or a period trend, using an HTML look and feel. Now, this screenshot is actually from 12.1.3. And the reason I did that is because the screenshot of this in 12.2.4 looks quite different. You'll see some 12.2 and later screenshots later on in the deck, and you'll notice they look quite a bit different. Oracle's done a really nice job with the UI in 12.2, and it actually looks, from the HTML pages, it looks very similar to the cloud UI. But using this functionality, you can save different types of queries and make them available. You can display summary accounts, you can hide accounts with no activity, and using this functionality, you can get quite a bit of information on an ad hoc basis that is very quickly and easily exported to Excel. You don't necessarily need a third-party tool if you're just acquiring on GL balances. The functionality within the Oracle applications is quite powerful. We can go to the next slide, Lee. All right, I think we're going to talk about RXI reports. So RXI reports, and I actually did this presentation on RXI. I did one on RXI about 10 years ago, and a lot of people even back then didn't even know it existed, and I'm sure that that's still the case now. RXI stands for Report Exchange Designer. And within the Oracle applications, there are a number of predefined variable format reports. And what that means is that there are reports, the transaction register is one. There are a number of them in fixed assets as well that have a myriad of columns that can be hidden or moved around or grouped. And you do not need a developer to do that for you. You can do it yourself. So here we have the standard report that comes out of the fixed assets ledger. And if we go to the next slide, we can see that we can use the administration tools, as I'll get to move these different things around and create different layouts. So you can use these different layouts to get different aspects of the report. Next slide, Lee. All formatting is conditional. It's defined in these things called attribute sets, which means you can have a different format with different attributes. So you can run the transaction register and just have it grouped by customer. And then you can have another transaction register and have it grouped by customer site. So each RXI report comes with many attribute sets. It comes with several by default, including what's called the default one. But you can also create your own, and you can modify those as needed to get some different reporting. The nice thing about the RXI reports, they will go right out into Excel. So you can actually have Excel as a format. You can also do CSV or tab delimited. And if you needed to get a report out of the system and you don't have a developer anymore, they're a really good way of getting some information out. So quickly on the next two slides, Lee, I think we've got examples of what an attribute set looks like. So when you run a report, an RX report, if you run it, we'll have a prefix of RXI, and we'll ask you how you want to publish it. And there's a bunch of different RX or RXI reports that are out there. If you need a full list, it is available from docs.oracle.com. But when you're running the report, it will ask you which attribute set you want to use. Here we have an RX only default attribute set for the fixed assets book report. As you can see, the 1 and the 2, the 3 and the 4, those are simply the levels and how the report is summarized. But you can also create your own different levels. And many of these columns have information. I will warn you, and it's a little bit frustrating, not all of them, even though they're there, not all the data elements are populated. Certainly in release 12.1.3, there was a lot of columns out here that did not have data. In the latest releases of Oracle and the last ones that I've worked in, many of the columns have indeed been populated. Next slide, Lee. So what we have here is the first slide was an example of the default one, and then we have an alternate view, which is called book details. So again, it's the same report with just a slightly different grouping of the attributes. Next slide. Okay, when you create your book details, you can go to your column details and move things around, and this is the format that you can use to look at them. Notice you can change your ordering. You can add sums. You can add different groupings. So, for a Java tool and it's built on fairly old technology, this is actually fairly robust and fairly flexible. Next slide, Lee. And here we have just two examples. On the left-hand side, we have the default attribute set with its grouping, and then, of course, we have the different attribute set grouping on the right-hand side. Now, the right-hand side is fairly horrific looking. And I don't think anybody would actually want to look at that, but it really is just an example of what you can do and how you can move the data around in a standard functionality environment. And as I said, all these reports, you can get them out to CSV and get them out to Excel very quickly. Lee, I think it's over to you.
Yeah, it is. So Tom talked about getting data out. We focused a little bit at the beginning on GL stuff and before getting onto RXI. So I didn't really want to cover the exporting, because the exporting to Excel from the application is honestly hit the export button and the table comes out to Excel. So that function is out there. I really wanted to focus on the GL side and look at SmartView. So SmartView is again, it's looking at it is a balanced kind of tool. It is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a pivot table on steroids. So it's live connected to the instance where you can do all your kind of pivots to look at the data as an analyst that you're looking for. The example I've got up here is actually one that we've put in a couple of clients where we have doing something like a P&L report in SmartView. So it's pulling in the revenues. You can see our revenue out there. We can see the expansion. In this case, we did actually expand out the expenses for material and goods. We still collapse the operating expenses and the extraordinaries and tax, but we could expand those out. We've got numbers based on quarters. Top right, we can see how that operating expense is actually broken out by the different accounts out there, so we can start playing around with that stuff. You can see trending from our revenue, as well as how the expenses are broken up by more of a bar chart kind of thing as we go through there. So we have all this kind of functionality, again, straight into Excel. This is Excel, so you can see in that screenshot, we do have other tabs out there for the cash flow, for the balance sheets, all this kind of stuff. We have those other tools out there. But it is a comprehensive tool for getting down to GL projects, Oracle projects, or cash management level reporting. We can get that kind of stuff out, and it's coming out to Microsoft Office products. Again, from an analysis point of view, it makes sense you're doing this in Excel because it's a pivot table. You're kind of expecting it to do this kind of stuff out there. Now, you may remember when we talked about the financial reporting stuff, I said we could get that to PDF, we could get it to Word, Excel, or query ready mode. That is code for SmartView. And that's a cool thing. We can get those reports, dump them into SmartView, but it's Office products. So it's not just Excel, it's Word, and it's PowerPoint. And the cool thing about getting it into PowerPoint is I can put a very similar report that we had out there earlier into PowerPoint. I can save the PowerPoint presentation, close my laptop, fly across the country, open up PowerPoint and hit refresh. You'll actually get a SmartView toolbar in PowerPoint, hit refresh, and it'll be updated with live numbers. So no more, let me get that report as it was 2 days ago, or have someone go run through all their VLOOKUPs and macros to get your report. Now you're truly using live data in a PowerPoint in something which can be accessible by everyone. As I said, the data is real time. So I can look at it, I can do an analysis, see that there's something I maybe want to reclass out there, post a journal entry, just refresh it. I can see that stuff out there. There's no more pivot tables. There's no more VLOOKUPs. There's no more of that stuff in Excel. You're now looking at live data. Now, the other cool part of it being live is you can change your analysis at any point in time. So what do I mean by that? Here is a SmartView table that I put together. Again, it's very rough and ready. I'm looking at revenue, I'm looking at some expenses, and we've got some color coding out here to try and show where we have like parents, where we have children. But let's suppose I'm really interested in that management charge for extraordinaries, that, what is it, $116,000. Without having to rerun anything, I can just go into that a little bit more. So I've kept just my column, my management column, my cost center, and that row. I've just expanded it out a little bit. So again, real time, I'm looking at exactly the same data. I've still got that 116 grand, but now I can see how it's made up just in that cost center. And I can see I've got some gains and I've got some losses out there. The little window you see, the point of view that we call it out there, just shows what else is out there. So my pivot table is just looking at accounts and cost centers, but I can see it. I'm looking at all companies, all lines of business, all intercompanies, its ending balance. You can see all that information. Again, it's live. I can change it if I wanted to. I could now say, okay, I see that $116,000, which is the ending balance as of the end of December 2022. Let me change it. Let me now put my columns up there. Sorry, change my columns. So now I've got periods across the top. Again, I haven't done anything. This isn't a re-extract. It's just changed the look and feel of it. Now I can see each of my periods going across the top there, the same balances, where they're coming from, again, for the same cost center. So it's doing true analysis, not having to change how I'm doing my VLOOKUPs or anything like that. True analysis, using the power of the possible to do the analysis that I want, to actually start doing analysis rather than trying to spend my time pulling this data together to get my analysis. Now I'm just purely focusing on the analysis out there. That's a kind of cool functionality we have with SmartView. Now, the other part that SmartView do, I can still get back to the balances. So I could see those numbers out there. I could have drilled into it there. We'll show it to you. But Oracle does have, within the cloud apps, we have inquire and analyze balances. It's still functionality that's available in General Ledger. Essentially, it's SmartView without using Excel. So think of a pivot table in an HTML form. It's still looking at the same places, so using either tool will get me the same results. It's still live. I can still have my points of view out there. I still have my columns and rows, but it's drillable, so I can still get back that kind of information. What do I mean by that? This is what the tool looks like in the applications. Again, if you look at the main data that fills up most of the page, it's still looking pivoty table. It's still got cost centers across the top. It's got my accounts coming down the side, and where the two meet, that's where I get data coming back. I can see for some of these cost centers, there's no data. For some of these cost centers, there are $0 out there, so it has been used, it's just a $0. And on the right-hand side, I still have my point of view. This is what the rest of the data is, so it's looking for a specific company, for a specific line of business. I can drill into these. But another tool I have is Account Monitor. Account Monitor is for accounts that I care about. So I have the general ledger access. I care about specific accounts. Maybe I care about the travel and entertainment expenses accounts. Maybe I care about, I'm an AP manager. I care about my AP liability. I care about my cash accounts. Whatever makes sense to me, I can look at. I can have it in a single point of time. I can say, compare actuals against actuals, maybe this period against last period, this period against the same period last year. I can do actual against budget. I can look for tolerances. If it's within 2%, I could care less. If it's more than 2%, I really care about it. It also has built-in intelligence. So a decrease in expenses is a good thing. Decrease in revenue is a bad thing. We actually get that coming across as well. And again, here's an account monitor. I'm looking at expenses here, comparing to them to the same period last year. I can see that these are expenses. They are actually travel and entertainment expenses, what I called it. I can see in 2021, it was 23 grand. In 2020, they were 42 grand. It's gone down. It's a good thing. I can do actual against budget. So this is now looking at accounts. I can see that for one of my rows, the third row down, I'm way over budget. The other ones, I'm below budget. It's looking a good thing. Again, it's whatever I want it to look like, we have this value here. If I drill down from either of those two areas, so if drill down from SmartView, drill down from the inquiry, the detail inquiry, or come from the account monitor, I get to this kind of screen. Let me show up all the balances that make up that number I was looking at, which I have here. Drill down on those, I can see the journals, and if it's coming from a subledger, I actually get down to the transaction level itself to get down to the eventual action. So I can get down all the way down from my balance, all the way down to my subledger. That's our transactions out there. Tom, that was SmartView. That was the drill down stuff there. Let's talk about the enterprise command centers, can we?
Thanks, Lee. So enterprise command centers have been around since 12.2. They were originally released in 12.2.4, and there's certainly been some expansion since then. But enterprise command centers was built on the Adecca product. I think they still are actually, but when they were originally released, they were not as flexible as they are now. But it is an embedded tool that you get to use with the application to build these really great dashboards as part of your standard features and functions. Next slide, Lee. So functionality is released in 12.2.4. It extends your application with some pre-built analytical tools that Oracle requires you to configure, but the configuration is actually very minor. The great thing about it is because of the way they are constructed, you can leverage your security within eBusiness Suite. You don't necessarily have to have custom security like you did with some of the other tools such as Business Intelligence or even Analytics. They exist for many applications. I'm not going to read all this. This slide will be made available via OETUG, but it just came out with a very limited release in 12.2.4. But as of 12.2.12, it's actually quite comprehensive, and it gives you a really great flavor of analytical capabilities. Next slide, Lee. So this is a payable supplier balances, and I wanted to bring this up because I think one of the slides Lee has later is quite similar, but it's from Cloud. But the really great thing about this is you can go in, look at a dashboard, you got your KPIs up at the top, you've got main information that's available there, and from here you can actually use these to drill down and get the more pertinent information about each of these transactions. And this is with the application, and I stress that because there's a lot of third-party tools that do a really great job, but the fact is if you upgrade to the latest release of Oracle EBS, you get this stuff, and it's actually very powerful. Next slide, Lee. Okay, just some examples of open receivables. You can go, try to pick it up, folks, because we're a little bit behind because Lee and I are a little too loquacious. We're going to go to the Transactional BI. So this dashboard you're seeing now, and I'll turn it over to Lee in a second. This is actually a general ledger dashboard from Oracle Cloud. Lee, take it away.
Thank you, Tom. So yeah, OTBI is a tool that is embedded directly within cloud applications. So cloud was built with it in mind. It gives you, again, real-time insight into what you're looking at. At the last count we had, there are about 9,000 odd data objects that you have access to in the different subject areas to generate the reports you want to look at. And the tool is, again, it's drag and drop. I want to see this column. I want to see that column. Start grabbing them, start putting them out there. Security is still in place. So if I only have access to one business unit, I only see the information for one access unit, for that one business unit. If I don't have access to payables, don't see any payables dashboards out there. So this is kind of how the tool actually works. So you can see on the left-hand side, I've got my subject areas. I've got each of the different folders within those subject areas. Within those have the individual data. And I just started dragging columns across. I'm looking for business unit. I want to see the supplier site, some invoice number, that kind of information. And I have some filters. So I'm only looking for this specific one for invoices which are on an achievement hold. We have that kind of information out there. But you can take a report like that, as basic as that is, and start getting into charts and graphs. So here we have something that's looking at our net revenue. So I didn't want to use SmartView, didn't want to use FRS. Now I'm doing OTBI stuff to get charts and graphs to show my revenue, my COGS, my operating expenses, whatever, pulling this kind of information. Again, Oracle actually helps you out as you go through here. Do you want a table? Do you want a chart? Yes, I can do those. Okay, well, you have your chart out there. What do you want it? Do you want one axis? Do you want two axes out there? Do you want bar chart, line chart? Oracle just gives it to you out of the box, so you don't have to worry about how do I get it to display. This is how I want it to be displayed, and Oracle takes it from there. Tom, I think we're on the last one. Again, we've done these in order, right? We looked at FSGs, we looked at FRS reports, we looked at exporting stuff out of General Ledger, we looked at SmartView, we looked at the command centers, we looked at OTBI. Those are all markedly different in both applications, in both EBS and cloud. Tom, BI Publisher really kind of looks at both of them, right?
It really does, Lee. That's correct. So the last two things we have to discuss is BI Publisher, and the functionality is really similar in EBS as it is in cloud, right? So BI Publisher is for high volume, specifically formatted piece of information. It can certainly be used for reports, but it still has facts on here. This is, you guys can tell, is an old image, but I dusted this one off from the Wayback Machine. But if you do need to send stuff out for email or repository destinations, it does a really nice job in various layouts. You can certainly use it for Adobe or Word or Excel. You get your data, your layout from the applications. It was initially released in 11.5.10. I had a client that was on 11.5.7, and they just could not wait to get to this because they had so many custom invoices, and they needed to go into the report exchange designer version 6, I think it was at the time, to change them. And then this all came out, and they were able to change it themselves just using the Word plugin. And that's exactly primarily what it is. There certainly are some Excel plugins that you can utilize, but pretty much most of the things you need to do, you can design them in Word. If you really need a specific format, you can actually design them in PDF and use that as a template as well. Next slide, Lee.
So we just had some samples out here. So again, this is... Go ahead, Tom. You talk about it.
No, these are just some samples that are out there. A lot of these come from the application, the pre-built application. So the one in the middle is from the Oracle e-business suite environment, and the one on the right-hand side is actually from a cloud environment. You can go to the next slide, Lee. We've got some examples here. These are some pre-printed forms. So the one on the right-hand side, that is a BI Publisher using a pre-printed form. We typically, meaning Creole, recommends that when you do those pre-printed forms, you actually use an Adobe template just because it's a little more exacting than doing it in Word, but you certainly can. And there's some really good applications out there. On the left-hand side, we've got a chart. There's some really good third-party applications like Bartender that you can use this, but the functionality is there and it's pretty good in BI Publisher. So the template on the right-hand side or left-hand side there, that's just an ACH file. And then, of course, we've got some charts and graphs. And we're going a little quicker, folks, so we had one too many slides, I think. Next slide, Lee. So in summary, these are the main areas that we have. These are out of the box. It does some really great things. So, if you're still struggling with reporting in EBS or Cloud, again, as I said at the beginning, there really are some great third-party solutions, and I know that there's a place for those. But I would really urge you to look and determine what's available in the applications by default before you go off and looking at third-party solutions. We were going to talk about an additional piece of functionality that's available not only for EBS, but also for Cloud, which is Fusion Analytics. There is an accelerator that you can use that plugs into EBS and helps do some data transformation to get you some pre-built analytics that's available, and that's also available for the Cloud. But we really wanted to focus on those core tools, which we did. I'd like to, if we could, Jamie, open it up for questions if anybody has questions, and if not, that is certainly fine. We can wrap it up, but if they do, we do want to take the last 8 minutes and answer them.
Yeah, we do have a question here. Are FSGs and Report Manager only for GL reports?
Great question. So, the question is FSGs and Report Manager only for GL reports? The answer for FSGs is definitely yes. Report Manager is primarily for FSGs, but you actually can get some additional reports included in Report Manager. You can at least use Report Manager to publish reports if you can't create a report book. But yeah, it is only an FSG-based report. There is now the difference between Cloud, FRS, you can actually use FRS against any Essbase cube. So if you wanted to build an FRS report, not only against financials, but you could actually build FRS against the projects cube, or theoretically, you could actually use it to go against the cash management cubes as well. Great question.
All right.
What else we got, Jamie?
There's a few more here. Are these RXI report and builder available in 12.2?
They certainly are. Yes. RXI is there. You have to go out and look for it. So in a lot of environments, a lot of responsibilities are actually disabled. And I'm not sure if that happened as part of an upgrade or what it is. But yeah, if you go into 12.2, RXI is actually still there. The name of the responsibility is called Report Exchange Designer. It's report with an E. But if you add that responsibility to your name, you can go in there and create the templates. And then the number of reports in 12.2, it's actually a little bit more than it was in 12.1. It wasn't a ton, but they did make a couple more reports RX. Many of the RX reports are cash management, accounts receivable and fixed assets. But there are a couple general ledger ones, and there are a couple other modules as well. So I would urge you to look at it. The technology is old, but it works, and it does a really nice job.
Okay. Does Cloud functionality replace the need for Oracle Analytics Cloud?
Lee, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so depends. I mean, if you're only looking at your Oracle applications, then OTBI can probably get you most of the way there. As soon as you start looking somewhere else, so I want to grab information from my ERP system or HCM system, whatever I'm using Oracle Cloud for, and something else, then yeah, I need to start having the analytics stuff, and that needs to be kind of somewhere where I can grab other things. But if you're only looking at if you're only looking at data within your cloud applications, yeah, the OTBI should be able to get you there. Tom, you have any thoughts?
No, that's 100% accurate. So I wouldn't say it's depending on what you're trying to accomplish, but general rule of thumb I've always had, if you're just reporting from Oracle ERP, OTBI is pretty robust. As soon as you want to start bringing in third-party data and you don't want to use Excel as your source, then Fusion Analytics is probably the way to go.
This next one I can actually answer. Will this recording be shared so that I can watch it again? Lots of good info that I'd like to watch again and digest. Yes, this recording will be available within the next 48 hours or probably on Monday for members in the knowledge base, and that link is in the chat.
And just as an aside, if you're interested in hearing this amazing accent, then I am also available for children's parties.
Can you change cubes once an FRS report is created?
Okay, that's a great question. So can you change cube once it's created? So the existing report is going to look at one cube. So you can, and that was an issue to have cloning between, trying to move reports between instances. So a lot of times people will set up test and call the cube, I don't know, test and go to prod, call the cube prod, and those reports won't go over. So once the report's built, you can't actually change it out there. That's where I would go for that one.
Okay. And this looks like it might be the last one. Any guidance on running ECC in the OCI environment? ECC would be located in a customer. ECC would be located in a customer compartment, and EBS in an OMCS managed compartment.
I don't even understand that question. Jamie, I got a punt.
It's in the questions chat. If it would help you to read it yourself.
Let me see here.
Tom, I will let you bring that up.
Chat. I'm trying to bring it up now.
You're fine.
I am not seeing that question. I apologize, Jamie. I know you said it's in the questions box, but I'm not.
Let's see if I can copy it. All right. I just assigned it to you. I believe that was Thomas.
I got it. Yes.
Okay.
Any guidance? Oh, so enterprise command centers. Okay. Any guidance surrounding enterprise command centers in the Oracle Cloud infrastructure environment? Oracle Enterprise Command Centers will be located in the customer compartment, in EBS, and the managed compartment. That is so I understand the question, and that is unfortunately for me a far more technical question. That is more of a DBA question than is a functional question. Not my area of expertise. There is a database management SIG that you might be able to post that question to, or you could possibly push that question out on the OETUG questions forum. So I apologize. That is one that I cannot answer. Sorry, Jamie.
No problem. Thank you for taking that. Sometimes it is, I know that they don't always make sense when I read them, since I don't always know the products. But
no, you did a great job reading it. It was just a hard one to answer.
All right. Well, that was it for the questions. Thank you so much, Thomas, Lee, Mohan, and Hans.
Thank you.
And I want to say this will conclude today's webinar. Thank you to everyone for joining us today, and I hope everyone enjoys the weekend.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. See you guys everybody next month on April 14th. Hans Colby will be leading that session. I look forward to it.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.